Hey everyone, welcome back. Have you ever built a piece of software that was, technically flawless, but just completely missed the point for the business? Well, today we're going to demystify the one mindset that can stop that from ever happening again. It's called domain-driven design, and it's a super powerful way to wrestle with complexity and actually win. So let's get into it.
You know this feeling, right? We've all been there. You spend weeks, maybe months, just crafting this beautiful piece of software. It passes all the tests, it's efficient, it's elegant, and then you show it off and you get that look. Yeah, but that's not what we actually needed. This meme just captures that pain so perfectly. You're standing on the podium for your technical achievement, but the real prize, solving the business's problem, isn't even in the stadium.
So, how do we fix this disconnect? Well, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll dig into that core problem, the code versus business gap. Then, we'll introduce domain-driven design as a solution. After that, we'll get into its key concepts, see how it works in the real world, and wrap up by asking a really important question: when should you actually use it? All right, let's start with the real challenge here. The reason our brilliant code sometimes falls flat is because there's this massive chasm between the world of tech and the world of the business itself. And this slide, it just shows the divide perfectly. Over on one side, you've got us, the developers, thinking in databases, APIs, design patterns, and all that good stuff. And on the other side, you have the domain experts, the actual business people, who are thinking about things like supply chains, regulatory compliance, and customer workflows. It's like we're speaking completely different languages.
And here's the thing. We can't just throw up our hands and expect the business to give us a perfect, technically detailed spec. As Steve Jobs famously pointed out, it's not their job to know what they want, in our terms. It is our job, as the people building the software, to be the translators, to bridge that gap and turn their real-world problems into a system that actually delivers value.
And that is exactly where domain-driven design, or DDD, comes into the picture. It's not some new framework or library you can download. It's a philosophy. It's an entire approach designed specifically to build that bridge between our technical world and their business world. So, what is it really? Well, thanks to Eric Evans, who came up with this, DDD is a total paradigm shift. Instead of starting with the technology, the database, the framework, we start with the business domain. The technology just becomes a tool that serves the business logic, not the other way around. The whole point is to create a model in your software that is a living, breathing reflection of how the business actually works. And when you do this, you get some incredibly powerful benefits. It's all about creating a shared language so that developers and business experts are truly on the same page. It forces you to put your time and energy into the parts of the business that are actually the most important. And what you end up with is software that's not just easier to maintain, but is genuinely aligned with the company's goals. Okay, so how does this actually work in practice? DDD is kind of split into two major parts. The first one is called strategic design. Think of this as the 30,000-foot view. It's about mapping out the entire business landscape before you even dream of writing a line of code. Now, the single most important idea in strategic design is something called the bounded context. Here's why it matters. The word customer to someone in the sales department means something totally different than customer to someone in the support department. A bounded context draws an explicit line in the sand around a part of your system and says, inside this boundary, the word customer means this one specific thing. It helps you divide and conquer complexity. And this diagram here, it shows it perfectly. See that blue oval? That's our bounded context. Inside that little world, our model is clear, it's consistent. This is what stops the complexity from one part of the business from leaking out and making a mess somewhere else. So how do we decide what things mean inside that boundary? We do it with the ubiquitous language. And look, this is not just some glossary you write and forget about. It's a living, shared language that developers and business experts build together. This is the real game changer. It's no longer us and them. It's a partnership where everyone uses the exact same words, whether they're in a planning meeting, writing documentation, or, and this is key, naming a class in the code. This Venn diagram just nails it. The magic happens right there in the middle. When a business expert talks about a shipment, your code should have a class called shipment, not delivery item or package object. It seems so simple, but this one idea gets rid of a massive amount of misunderstanding and bugs down the line. Okay, so once we've mapped out that big picture with strategic design, it's time to zoom in. We get down into the weeds with tactical design. This is where we define the actual building blocks of our model inside each of those bounded contexts. So, two of the most basic building blocks you'll hear about are entities and value objects. The key difference, as you can see here, is all about identity. An entity, like a customer, has a unique ID that follows it around forever. You can change their name or address, but they're still the same person. A value object, like a location, is defined only by its attributes. If you change its latitude, it's not the same location anymore. It's a completely new one.
Okay, so how do we make sure all these objects work together and our data stays consistent? We use aggregates. An aggregate is basically a cluster of related objects that we treat as a single unit. Think about an order and all of its order items. You shouldn't be able to just change the quantity of an item from anywhere in the code. No, you have to go through the order object itself, and it gets to enforce the rules, like making sure the total price is always correct.
I know, that might all sound a bit academic, so let's make it super concrete with a real-world example that pretty much all of us have used. Imagine we're building a ride-hailing app. Let's call it RideX. So a user opens the app and requests a ride. That creates a ride request entity. Right away, that triggers a ride requested event. A totally separate service is listening for that event, and its job is to find a driver. When a driver accepts, the ride aggregate status gets updated and it fires off another event, a ride accepted event. See how all those patterns, entities, events, services, work together to model a real business process? And here's why this is so incredibly relevant right now. DDD gives you a nearly perfect blueprint for building microservices. A bounded context, like billing or trip management, is a natural boundary for a microservice. And an aggregate, like that order, defines the boundary for data consistency inside that service. It's such a powerful guide for designing these complex distributed systems. And what's really cool is how timeless these ideas are. Get this, we're now seeing these same principles being used to design really complex AI agents. For an AI to actually understand commands and plan out tasks, it needs a clear model of its world and a precise shared language, which, of course, are the core ideas of DDD. It just proves that great design principles go way beyond any specific technology.
All right, after all that, it is really tempting to think that domain-driven design is the answer to every single problem. But, like any powerful tool, you have to use it wisely. It is definitely not a silver bullet.
So the real wisdom is knowing when to pull this tool out of the toolbox. DDD absolutely shines when you're dealing with a business domain that has tons of complex rules. It's perfect for big, long-term projects that you know are going to grow and change. But if you're just building a simple to-do list app or a basic data entry form, using DDD would be massive overkill. A much simpler, more direct approach is going to be way better. And that really brings us to the final thought here. As technology just keeps changing faster and faster, maybe the real secret to building great software, software that lasts and delivers real value, isn't about chasing the next shiny new framework. Maybe it's about mastering the much harder, timeless challenge of creating a true, shared understanding between the people who build things and the people who use them. Thanks so much for joining me.